And this is the Radio of Horror Network with the Dr. Chris Radio of Horror Show on VidMe YouTube, as well as on 91.3 FM WCW in Worcester. And I am your host, Dr. Chris.
And I am Jess O'Lantern.
And tonight we are going to be talking about comedy horror, because Jess and I have been watching Santa Carlita Diet. That's the name of the show with Drew Barrymore, right?
Yes.
Yes, and that show is fucking hilarious. It's such straight up dark humor, but played takes itself so seriously. I thought, why don't we talk about comedy horror movies?
Yeah, it's definitely my favorite side of the genre.
One of my favorite, I think I was introduced to comedy horror as my first introduction to horror. I that's my memory of the horror industry, I believe. What about you, Jess?
Something similar. I mean, it kind of is like a gateway drug, because for people who, the real intense horror movies are a little too much for some people, so, comedy is an easy way to kind of ease your way into the whole scary realm.
Yeah, and even the first horror movie that, again, I am 37 years old and I'm trying to rack my brain about what came first in the timeline of my life of what I've watched. I do know that one of the first movies I ever watched was a vampire movie, and it was this film on HBO. Because once upon a time, HBO used to make original movies, and they kind of still do. They did the Slender Man movie. Are you familiar with that documentary that just came out?
I mean, I know who Slender Man is, but I didn't know that there was a documentary on the urban legend, though.
Quick sidebar. So there's a documentary out now on HBO, which you can watch online as well, about Slender Man and about the two girls who killed their classmate regarding Slender Man, if you heard about that horrible case story.
Yeah, I did hear about that.
Okay, so the HBO, besides original programming like Game of Thrones and True Blood, they also used to make original movies, which again they do once in a while. And one of the first movies I watched was a comedy horror called My Best Friend is a Vampire, starring. If you ever watched House, one of the main characters from House was the vampire in this movie, Wesley from House. If you ever watched that, the Fox drama.
Yeah.
As well as David Warner. David Warner has got one of the most long IMDb's out there. He's been in so many different things. He's an incredible voice actor. Look him up. He's a big time character actor. He's been in so much stuff. And it's about this kid who's trying to lose his virginity, and he decides to sleep with this woman who he brings groceries to, because this was a thing in the 80s. You would deliver groceries to people, which has become kind of a thing again today. The vampire hunters after him actually think it's his friend who's the vampire and not him, and he meets this Obi-Wan Kenobi style vampire named MODOK, who tells him he's a living vampire, not a undead vampire, because he can walk around in the daylight. This was at a time where coming out of the closet and being gay was kind of a new revelation for people. So his parents think that he's possibly gay, and they want him to know that he's they're okay with it. And here's the great thing. The vampire, the sultry Naoma, is that the vampire's name? She's Gregory Peck's daughter, as in Gregory Peck from To Kill a Mockingbird.
Nice.
And the Wicker Man. Horror connection right there. And I always remembered that it was just so silly, but they also had that great song, Gotta Wear Shades by Timbuktu.
Yeah.
That's played twice during the movie. Once when he fully accepts that he's becoming a vampire, so he just embraces the vampirism, and then at the end of the movie during the credits when his parents are he's oh, by the way, this is my new girlfriend, and they're oh, you're not gay. Good stuff. So what's a favorite of yours, or one that you probably the first that you can remember going all the way back to your childhood?
I mean, I can't really remember the first one that I watched because I wasn't really allowed to watch very many horror movies.
We were never allowed, but we did anyway.
Yeah. So, I mean, as far as one standing out, it's difficult to come up with one in the past, but I have recently watched a few that I'm absolutely obsessed with, if that counts.
Yeah, no, it's the same thing. Go ahead. Your obsession is totally okay.
One of the most recent ones that I just watched, my boyfriend and I had a movie night, and we watched Chillerama.
Oh, yeah. Adam Green's.
Have you seen Chillerama?
Oh, yeah. We in fact, back when Chillerama first released, we had Adam Green on the show to talk about it.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, he's the director of that, as well as the Hatchet movies and the Holliston TV series. Holliston is right up your alley for comedy horror. It's kind of like the Big Bang Theory of horror for horror fans. What was your favorite segment of Chillerama?
Probably Diary of Anne Frankenstein.
Oh my god. Do you know who the actor is who plays Hitler in that?
I was just about to say Joel David Moore. He plays JP in Grandma's Boy, and he's absolutely brilliant. I loved the fact that he wasn't actually speaking German and just yelling a bunch of random words. Oh. That was the best part of the whole thing.
Kristen Klebe, who's in that playing his wife, actually knows German and was the one who helped him like come up with like the nonsense German that he's speaking in that. Joel David Moore, of course, is also in Hatchet, the first Adam Green movie. And, I mean, his career is fantastic, like being in Avatar as well as recently on Forever, and he's been on Bones a number of times. Yeah. And then, of course, you know who plays the creature in that movie.
I don't actually.
Legendary Friday the 13th actor and Hatchet star Kane Hodder.
Really? Kane did that?
Yes.
Damn, all right.
Yeah, but you nailed it. That's what I was gonna say was gonna be my favorite of the comedy horror. Of the segments of that, the Diary of Anne Frankenstein. I love it when, I mean, Adam Green, like, he makes the point why he did that because he's like, I'm Jewish, so I'm allowed to make fun of this.
Of course.
And he's like, I just love this segment where Hitler is just like, you get on typewriter, type up little girl's diary, we sell for millions. Oh my god.
I'm Jewish-ish, like, you know, Seinfeld-ish on my dad's side, so I'm not really Jewish, but I have the appreciation for the tongue-in-cheekness of that one. I love bad puns, too, and it's so well done.
Yeah, absolutely. While we talk about... What? Go ahead.
There was another one, though. I've actually kind of been obsessed with this actor, too, trying to figure out other things that he has been in. Because he was just so... It was weird seeing somebody who looks like they're super innocent play somebody so evil. Anyway, in Deathgasm. Have you seen Deathgasm?
That's the rock and roll metal movie, right?
Yes.
Yes, it reminds me of Scott in the Book of Pure Evil.
Kind of, yeah. Jason Lee Hadron directed Deathgasm, and Milo Cawthorn is the actor who plays the lead. And I also found a movie that he was in on Shudder called Blood Punch.
I'm not familiar with that one.
It's really like adding Groundhog's Day and Breaking Bad and setting it in Cabin in the Woods. It's like one of those repetition movies. And it's weird because it's not really a horror comedy, but it has so many comedic elements to it that you're kind of unsure of whether or not you should laugh. And I kind of like that it kind of goes on that line. But yeah, Milo Cawthorn, he's awesome.
The Cabin in the Woods, a lot of people feel like that movie is also a great comedy horror, but a lot of some horror fans don't like it because it feels as though it talks down to horror fans. Yeah,
it's kind of a touchy subject. Like, I'm a fan of the movie in itself, but I kind of stayed out of the politics side of it.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. Frequent guest on the show, Dan Kimmel, who comes on every year to talk about the Sci-Fi Film Fest recently, and he should be back on in May with us to talk about the summer blockbuster reviews coming out. Well, not reviews, but because the movies aren't out yet, but summer overview of what's coming out this summer in blockbusters. So we cover like everything genre-related, sci-fi, horror, and fantasy. And he always, when he was a professor, he would always teach his class around September and October, Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, the original comedy horror.
That's, you know what? I have that as part of the box set of all of the Frankenstein movies, and that's probably my favorite one of the set, save for Bride of Frankenstein.
That movie is so great. I can't get tired of watching Abbott and Costello and the Frankenstein monster and Dracula and Wolfman.
Yeah, every comedic bit that works in the early comedies thrown into the guise of a horror movie. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
I love the scenes when they're first unboxing Dracula too.
Yeah.
Your first unboxing scene.
I love how is it Costello is the short fat one, right? Right. Yeah, he's the that's the character tropes of them. One's the tall, skinny one. One's the short, chubby guy.
Yeah.
He makes fun of Dracula in a way that Adam Sandler would go on in Hotel Transylvania as being like, I don't do that. I don't go blah blah blah.
Let's say blah blah blah.
Which.
I love Hotel Transylvania.
Say what you will about Adam Sandler, love or hate his movies, the Hotel Transylvania 2 films are absolutely fantastic. And let's face it, I mean, they're animated and directed by the guy who made Samurai Jack.
I love them. I'm biased because I've been told that I look like Mavis and my boyfriend looks like Johnny. So that's kind of
I can see you doing a little Mavis.
I have a special place in my heart for the Hotel Transylvania movies.
And Selena Gomez is currently now on a TV series called Powerless, where they work for Wayne Tech, making technology for like superheroes and stuff. It's a really funny show. And of course, the biggest comedy horror of the 80s, which we had talked about, I think, in our previous episode, is the one that gave us Michael Keaton as a big star, Beetlejuice.
Oh, of course. You know, it's weird because I love Beetlejuice so much. I don't even think about it as a horror movie. It's kind of its own.
No.
Beast by itself. It's magical. Like I know every single word. I've watched it so many times that it's ingrained into my skull.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at Alec Baldwin now currently on SNL playing a certain president of the United States, and his comedy comes from Beetlejuice.
It does. Yes. Oh.
I mean, he's dipped into the territory of being like a serious actor sometimes, but it's just like then on like 30 Rock, you're like, no, Beetlejuice.
You know, I realized that there's another horror actor that was from the 80s that this was definitely not a comedy movie, but I realized that there are more elements of comedy that are kind of seeding their way into that. But I mean, Robert Englund did you know, his fair share of tongue-in-cheek comedy as Freddy Krueger, but have you ever seen Jack Brooks' Monster Slayer?
Oh, yeah. Man, I really wanted to like that movie. I was not a fan.
So this is the thing, right? I watched that movie just because of the title, and I didn't even know that Robert Englund was in it. I did not do my homework. I was just on Shudder one night going, what am I watching tonight? Because I try to watch something different every night. And halfway through the movie, when I realized that Robert Englund was in it, like I was eating dinner and I sat my dinner aside and just like put my hands on my chin and just watched the movie completely because I was obsessed with the fact that Robert Englund was like, surprise, I'm in this movie.
Can you do that? Do you have the attention to be able to pick a film and do it? I have such terrible ADD. It took me 2 hours yesterday to figure out what I'm going to watch while I was eating, and I eventually landed on, oh wait, I bought the Blu-ray of Doctor Strange. I should watch that.
Run from like the titles. If it has a funny title or if I read the description and I'm like, this might work. I normally am multitasking when I'm watching something. Odds are I have either my phone or my iPad or something else going on, or I'm working on something. But you know, the fact that Robert Englund was in it, he's one of my favorite actors. Freddy's one of my favorite horror icons. So it was just kind of a little surprise gift to find that in my random movie I chose was one of my favorites, and I couldn't believe I didn't know about it. But I really enjoyed it. I don't know, maybe it was very like girl centric, I guess you could say, or like, because it was very like girl pleasy as far as Jack is concerned, you know. But like the beast at the end, it's so good. Like the animatronic giant slime monster thing that they have to beat. Oh my god, I don't want to give too much away, but like there's some animatronics in there that were just impressive for a puppeteer, and I just got really happy about it.
There was a movie that I couldn't wait to see when I was when it was in theaters in 1999. Eventually, unfortunately, I had to wait till it was on VHS. Starring Seth Green as a kind of like a comedy pot smoking zombie, Idle Hands, about a kid who has to chop off his hand possessed by a demon.
Oh, yeah, Idle Hands. Wow. I don't think I ever actually watched it. I remember seeing the trailer once.
Oh, it's so good. So good. It's so awesome. It's got like very young Jessica Alba is in it as well, because I remember seeing that in the trailer. This girl like constantly like dancing around they keep flashing to her in the trailer where she's like in a almost a Victoria's Secret like angel costume or whatever. I was like, who is this girl in this movie? And she's Jessica Alba, very very young Jessica Alba before Dark Angel. And it's also got like Vivica A. Fox in it, and Devon Sawa plays the main character Anton, who hand kills his parents and then kills his two best friends, and he has to chop it off. And the hand is basically like, it's such an homage to the Evil Dead, because the hand's like running around trying to like kill him.
It's true. I never thought of that. And see, now I want to go back and watch that, because I remember also like liking Devon Sawa when I was a kid. I'm like, he's dreamy. I want to watch movies. But now he's like evil, and his hand is trying to kill people.
And two former guests of the show were in the movie as well. Sean Whalen, who I had on back in over the summer, who's been in like Twister, and he's been in a bunch of horror movies as well. And Fred Willard.
You know, I find it, you know, we can't really have a conversation about horror comedy without mentioning Simon Pegg.
Yes, with his Shaun of the Dead.
And, you know, I wouldn't even say so much Shaun of the Dead as well as We Sell the Dead. Have you seen that one?
Yeah, the one based on the true story of Burke and Hare.
Yes.
Yes.
Which is also a horror movie called Burke and Hare.
And that movie was directed by the director of American Werewolf in London, also considered a comedy horror, John Landis.
Yes, all tied in together. I feel like We Sell the Dead I'm biased towards only because I do like Simon Pegg, and it was just so harsh. Like the scene with the barrel, that was absolute gold. Like with the fiddles, every time that the barrel happens, and then all of a sudden it's silent, and then the barrel is, you know, running down the way again, and they're trying to catch it because there's a corpse inside the barrel. It's just, you know, all those similar comic, you know, situations that happen in your normal comedies, but just like how in Abbott Costello versus Frankenstein, you know, you take a normal comedy and you sprinkle a little death on it, you know.
I was just at the Boston Science Fiction Film Festival, the 42nd annual Boston Science Fiction Film Festival, and they showed one of my favorite, most recent comedy horrors, directed by Don Casarelli, who directed the Phantasm movies, which are not comedies at all. They're straight up great horror movies. John Dies at the End, based on the novel of the same name.
Yes. Oh, that is such a mind trip. I remember watching that movie months ago, and I had forgotten what it was called because it was complex. There's so many other subplots that are in that film. It's not just about like his side effects, like him sitting there in the diner and everything too. Oh, it's one that I want to go back and watch again because I feel like I missed a lot of things.
Probably my favorite comedy horror. I mean, you could say, oh, The Evil Dead is so great, but honestly, I think this is like the one. I saw this long before I watched The Evil Dead, long before I saw a Freddy or Jason or Halloween movie. House 2, The Second Story, and I don't care about the first one, and I've never seen 3 and 4 because I've heard they're just not great, but House 2, The Second Story is one of the best comedy horrors ever made.
I'm very fond of the caterpillar dog.
The caterpillar dog is so goddamn adorable. He's just so like...
I love him so much. I want to hold him.
Early film for Bill Maher, who, you know, the politically incorrect comedian. Written by Fred Decker, who would also direct The Monster Squad.
Oh, of course.
Ari Gross, who played Jesse, our main character, and Jonathan Stark, who played his buddy Charlie. And of course, it also has Pixar's number one star, John Ratzenberger, as their handyman who knows something about interdimensional portals and stuff.
How convenient.
Yeah, just really weird. What was funny is that like I hadn't seen Ari Gross, who plays the main character, in anything in such a long time until I found out. Oh wait, he's been on Castle off and on as Pullmetter, the substitute mortician on the show every once in a while.
Oh, cool. I'm not familiar.
Jonathan Stark, who plays no relation to Tony Stark, Iron Man, who plays his buddy Charlie. Jess and I both know as the Ghoul from Fright Night.
Yeah,
he's in that, and he's been on. He was on According to Jim for like 118 episodes. He was on Ellen. His career kind of went into like just doing like long runs on sitcoms for a long time. So they're all basically still doing stuff, but this movie is just fantastic with like the mummy grandpa, and then you have the pterodactyl baby, and then they rescued like the young virgin, and just the hijinks that ensue inside that house are fantastic.
And the caterpillar dog.
The caterpillar dog is so adorable. Just a little hand puppet sitting right next to it, sitting like by grandpa.
Yeah. I'm gonna be for the creepy puppet every time.
You need to find out if they like merchandise that thing. If not, you need to be like maybe to be the one to start like being like, look, I can help you create a puppet dog.
I'm a puppeteer. I'm not a puppet builder. But anyway,
I'm sure you know people.
There's one more movie that I wanted to mention before we go, and it's kind of a tie-in to who we're talking to later today. But Frankenhooker.
Oh yeah, that is a comedy horror, I guess. I've never watched that movie, and not because I'm like, I don't want to see it. It's just like, it's never been a film I've gone out of my way to be like, oh, I should watch this because I've never seen it before.
Oh, I am so surprised, Chris, considering how many girls and how many naked ones there are.
I'm aware of the movie.
That movie is absolutely absurd, and I didn't realize that it was going to be that level of absurd, but like within the first 5 minutes when somebody gets attacked by a lawnmower, and that's how the entire plot of the whole story like happens, like I knew it was going to be absurdist. Like you can't really take it seriously. It's called Frankenhooker. I mean, the answer's in the name. It's classic for a reason. It works. It's hilarious.
Yeah. I again, it's just, you know what? I don't own a copy. My roommate probably has a copy. I should probably throw it in.
It's on Shudder.
Oh, yeah, no, my roommate, I will send you pictures of what my roommate's library looks like of films. It takes up 7 walls of DVDs. Not shelves, not bookcases, walls.
I like it because, like, there's the one element in Frankenhooker with her kind of getting revenge. It's ironic because you think that it's going to be kind of a female exploitation situation, but actually it turns itself around, and it's actually way the other situation. It's the other side of the spectrum, and I was happy with it.
Me and a friend are developing a script, which is kind of funny considering that my last project is kind of falling apart right now. So it's like, oh, I guess I've developed something else while that's like waiting for it to come back together. It's kind of a comedy horror. A film critic, female friend of mine, said that is so absurdly crazy. It's kind of funny. It's about a succubus. And she sucks men's souls through their lower anatomy.
Wow.
Yeah. Like she seduces men back to her place, proceeds to do her thing, but she like completely just sucks all the energy out of them. And she's like, it works on so many bad levels, but it would be a movie I would want to watch if you developed it.
I mean, well, wasn't teeth a thing?
Yeah, but teeth. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like teeth in a way, but I mean, I wasn't thinking about teeth like when I've been developing it. So, and it would just be like a matter of like just vacuum sucking, drying like people to like the mummification. You know what I mean? If that's not in the special effects budget, we could just like have it off screen where they're just like, they fall over. You know what I mean? And then she like stands up, wipes her mouth, and then goes about her day.
As you do.
And I've kind of like mentioned it to a couple of people, and they're like, it's so absurd. It's like Frankenhooker. They mention like Frankenhooker just because of the, mix of gross sexual humor and just black, comedy horror element to it.
Her whole thing was that she was just trying to figure out what she was. She didn't know so she wasn't like going out and like, doing things with people. She was very much like Frankenstein, not knowing who she was or what she was. And that was like her whole thing, was trying to figure it out. And when she finally did, she got angry.
Oh, yeah. So, and speaking of succubuses, there was Knights of Badassdom. Have you ever seen this?
Oh, my God. Yeah, I forgot about that one.
Oh, my God. Directed, by the way, by Joe Lynch from Chillerama and Adam Green's co-star on the Movie Crypt podcast. One of the most popular podcasts on the planet Earth. Yeah, they are insanely popular. There's a succubus in that movie as well as like the movie Jennifer's Body, which is a terrible movie, but that's kind of a succubus too. And before
I like Knights of Badass Men, though.
Oh God, there's so many great things about Night Badassdom, but I would love to see Joe Lynch's cut if it could ever actually happen. Unfortunately, excuse me, his Knights of Badassdom has become my version of my version of Frankenstein the silent film has become like his like Knights of Badassdom with like the problems and like issues and stuff. And just before we go, I have to mention because I just got done watching like a bunch of interviews with Lloyd Kaufman like singing the praises of James Gunn, because James Gunn has started out making trauma films, which we could have an entire episode of trauma films because trauma films are all comedy horror. But James Gunn got started directing trauma films, all those goofy like Kabuki Man and
Toxic Avenger.
Yeah, stuff like that. Tromeo and Juliet, and then of course he did Slither, where he hooked up with his co-star Michael Rooker, who would eventually go on to be his character Rondu in the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1 and 2. But Slither is a major comedy horror about like killer slugs from outer space. And James Gunn, obviously, you watch his Guardians of the Galaxy movies, and you're like, this guy did these. It's funny how like all of the best comedy horror and some of the best horror directors are now making huge budget Marvel movies. Sam Raimi, what did he do? He did the Evil Dead films. Then he went on to make the Spider-Man trilogy. James Gunn went from like trauma films and Slither to making the Guardians of the Galaxy, one of the biggest movies of 2014, and now Volume 2 is coming out in 2 months. Scott Derrickson, did you ever see Sinister?
No, but I know of it. I haven't seen it, though.
Really good movie. Don't ever watch the sequel, by the way. Really good first movie starring Ethan Hawke. He went on to direct Doctor Strange, which came out this past November.
Awesome. Yeah, I actually haven't seen it yet.
I mean, these horror directors are going on to making Marvel movies, which are like the biggest thing at the box office these days. It's unbelievable. I mean, start somewhere small and then go off to make something that costs like $250 million. I
guess it's the way.
It's the way. And again, a lot of these people are like, are comedy comedy horror directors. They've done like great stuff. Rodman Flender, who directed Idle Hands, also directed like 2 of the Leprechaun movies. He went on to work with Conan O'Brien on a bunch of stuff.
Nice.
And he's one of the directors for Scream, the TV series, which is pretty popular if you enjoy it or not.
Nah.
It's kind of hit or miss, There's like characters in it that I like, but I mean, Scream is kind of a comedy horror because it's a parody of the slasher genre. The original Scream.
Yeah, I've seen the original one way back when.
The TV series takes itself a little bit too seriously, I think, but I definitely think the movies were obviously the movies were Wes Craven was trying to parody the genre that he helped create with the Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
Well, that's it for this episode of Radio Horror. We talk about a genre of films. Tune in for more, as they're going to be up on our YouTube page and VidMe almost every week that we can get them up there. There'll be a different thing per episode of Radio of Horror, something new and different that we're trying throughout the year of 2017. So stay tuned for our next one, which I think we're going to be doing King Kong and kaiju monsters or big monsters or something like that. Right, Jess?
Sure.
Yes, and then we'll do other things connected to other elements of the horror industry that are coming out throughout the year. Like we're going to do probably a Stranger Things episode because we both love Stranger Things. But that's not going to be until like October because Stranger Things Season 2 doesn't happen until October. But thank you everyone for checking us out. Please go to our Patreon page. If you like the show, you can help support us there. And you can also find us on Facebook and on Twitter at ChrisDSAV and at Jesso Lantern, as well as Jesso Lantern's Facebook page and the Radio of Horror Facebook page.
Hooray!
Yay! Thanks, everybody.